share they normally have cost?
Um, Most of those you can get good ones for 800 to $1,000.
And so, how many of them have you all put out there?
We bought one, and that's because that's all they needed. We
It was just
just
for one person that had the
It's
special
one
need.
person at a time. The person that the first person they actually put in this, used it for quite a while, and it
Before they passed.
before they passed. Then it was sitting there and available. Now they have another individual out there, and it's it helps their life. It's it helps them to be able to still be a little bit independent, and the image of what they're doing, it really psychologically, it's a tremendous boost to them, and especially
Do you
in the
think it might
latter
even
part of
extend
their
their
time.
life?
Yes. Oh yes.
$3,000 seems cheap.
For yes, yeah, and that's like, that's what I'm saying. That's what we try to do.
All right, please pick another project. If there's any that bear mentioning that are.
Oh yeah. Um, well, a about 7 years ago now, um, we do Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and now Wreaths Across America ceremonies down at the Nevada State or Southern Nevada Veterans
In Boulder
Memorial
City.
Cemetery in Boulder City, and we've been doing those for years. About 7 years ago, prior to 7 years ago, what they tried to do was to have a different veterans organization each time take over and do the whole program, everything, do everything on it. And about 7 years ago now, I got a call from the superintendent at the cemetery who said that the veterans organization, and this was 3 weeks before Memorial Day, that the veterans organization that was going to do the program um,
Backed out.
backed out. And I said, we're not gonna let that happen. So we took it over. We did it. It came out. It came out pretty doggone good. We had some things that happened on that were great. But what I did was I said, we don't want that to happen again. So I prepared a little deal that I took forward to the Cemetery Advisory Committee, that is appointed by the governor, that oversees the cemetery down there. And I took this thing into them and I broached it to them, and I says, why don't we try to set up a volunteer committee made up of representatives from different veterans organizations, and we can meet and work on putting on these ceremonies out here, and then we can delve out pieces to the puzzle for each of the veterans organizations to do, and have one of them be in charge of actually putting on the program itself. They said, sounds like a great idea. So they appointed two members off the committee to be on this volunteer group, and they appointed me since I had come up with the idea. So that
And
started the Veteran Cemetery Volunteer Group. We had 3 people to start it. We now have over 18 veterans organizations and community organizations represented on that group, and that's how we put on the programs. It's tremendous.
you, you mentioned the governor oversees it, and one of the two guys that referred me to you mentioned that you know the governor and that you serve on something with him. Can you tell us about that? I'm not clear.
Okay, um, that that volunteer group kept growing. Well, as part of that, I was picked to be a member of the Southern Nevada Veterans Memorial Cemetery Advisory Committee, um,
And the
which is an
cemetery is
appoint.
run by the state.
Cemetery is run by the state. the advisory committee basically is, all the people on the advisory committee are appointed by the governor, and their job is to basically monitor what's going on out there,
To manage
to advise the superintendent, and to to do basically do stuff like that. Well, then I got elected as the chairman of the advisory committee, and what happened then was I was then appointed as a member of the Nevada Office of Veteran Services Commission by the governor as a representative of the Southern Nevada Veterans Memorial Cemetery. So now I work on two appointed positions.
Do either of them pay?
No.
Was there another? So, do you know the governor well, or that's your primary focus? Is just the veteran services?
Don't really know the governor that well, but in meeting them, they we get to know each other a lot, and we're working with them.
And I'm going to speculate here. Tell me if I'm right. You got to know the governor because you made yourself available to serve, and your service was exemplary, and you just kept going step up, step up, step up, and boom, you're in front of the governor. Kind of like that.
Right. Correct.
So your service has led you to meet other notable personalities as well. Is that accurate?
Yes. Very.
Do you have a particular spiritual practice? You can say no.
Well, actually, in some cases, I would say yes.
Tell us about it, please.
One of the things that I do is, again, it's working with veterans and people that are in nursing homes and stuff like that.
Just the regular work you've already described, or it's something else?
Somewhat, but if they want to talk about things, or even friends that are suffering from.
So you make yourself available as a confidant.
Right. I've got several friends, and have had several friends that have been suffering through, like cancer, things like that, and going over and visiting them, helping them, doing things for them, and just like a counselor or someone just to listen, things like that.
Please tell us about the uniform you're wearing.
This actually is my Veterans of Foreign Wars uniform, and like I said, this year I'm the state judge, or state junior vice commander, which is the number 3 individual in the what we call in the chairs, or in the organization for the state of Nevada. We have a commander. Each year we have a commander, we have a senior vice, and we have a junior vice.
And it's kind of like next year the senior vice will be the commander, and the year after you'll be the commander.
Correct.
And you have Vietnam on your right lapel.
Right.
Tell us about why you have that.
I'm proud of my Vietnam service. That is my qualifying service for the Veterans of Foreign Wars. I think most of us that were in Vietnam were not proud of the war. Like I said, we don't love war, but we're proud of the fact that when our nation needed us, we went where we were.
You rose to the occasion.
And that was it.
Tell us about your tie.
Bolo tie, retired Air Force.
Okay. And you have on your right shoulder, you have the POWMIA flag symbol. Um, how many guys are still missing over there?
We've, we've actually, they are repatriating remains even as we speak from World War II, Korean War, Vietnam, and even Iraq, Afghanistan.
But in specific, that flag came about because of Vietnam. Specifically, do you know how many guys are still missing in Southeast Asia?
It's still up in the thousands.
Less than 10.
Hmm.
More than 3?
I think it's probably around 28, 3,000, something like that.
Okay. What's the first service project that you can ever remember working on in your life?
Hmm. Actually, the first one that I can remember was when we were in. It was back when I was in Glendale. We were going to the church. The church we were going to. It was Chevy Chase Baptist Church, and they were going out to the City of Hope quite often. And we went out there with our youth group, and to me that was it.
What did you do?
Pretty much the same thing I'm doing now. We were going out there. We were
Handing out ice cream and holding people's hands.
holding people's hands, talking to people, singing. We had a singing groups. We'd sing for them out there. Just and it was. And that made me feel good. That made me feel really good going out there and being able to help them. And it even comes back around because when I worked for the city of North Las Vegas, we had one of my coworkers ended up getting leukemia, and she really had some bad times, but she went out to the City of Hope. And they actually did a bone marrow transplant between her and her sister, and that was, I think it's about 8-9 years ago now. About 8 years ago, or more. And she's still doing great. And so she said, "Oh, I'm going to the City of Hope," and I says, "Oh man, it's a great place." And I was able to tell her about it because I've been there before. Of course, that was quite a while back. Things have changed a lot
Sure.
since then, but it was still kind of neat.
Is there a moment in your life that you can remember where you had an epiphany, where you knew that service was going to be a major aspect of your life? And if so, please describe your thoughts and feelings at that time.
I remember several times actually having some things that said, that I kind of said, well, this is kind of what I want to do. My wife's a registered nurse. She worked for quite a while as a hospice nurse. And,
That's tough.
And actually, she was working as a hospice nurse when I was working for the hospital, for Valley Hospital, and she was actually across the street at the Clark County Health District, and she'd come over and eat lunch over in our cafeteria every once in a while. Several of the nurses over there at Valley Hospital knew who she was and what she did, and they get to talking, and they'd say, "Well, gee, I can't do what you do." And my wife says, "Well, I really don't like to do that much. Do things like emergency room." She's worked in emergency room. She worked in surgery. She worked, all over. But her deal is she likes to work with people. She likes to work with families, and so that was the thing with the hospice work. And while she was doing hospice work, was one of the times that I was out of work. So I became her chauffeur because some of the places that she was going in town were not not great. and just doing that, I got to work with some of the families and some of her patients too. So, and that was fulfilling. It was good.
I'm going to give you two hypothetical viewers. One of them, they're educated, they have lots of money, they're good. No, not much chance that they're going to fall economically, at least in their mind. They could be married, they could be not, whatever, but they're very socially active. They're very busy, busier than a one-armed paper hanger. And and then the other person is struggling. Maybe they're serially unemployed. Um, it's all they can do each day to get dinner on the table. Um, Neither of these people has ever done anything for anything other than themselves and their own narrow self-interest. Maybe they take care of their kids, but